Hi, everyone. I'm Ben Kaplan, Director of Education at YIVO, and I'm thrilled to be here today with author Michael Wex. You're the author of Born to Kvetch and Rhapsody in Schmaltz. Michael, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. And you, I'm sort of confined, but people have been saying for years I should be confined. So the pandemic has actually, it's fulfilled my purpose, my entelikeia, my purpose on this earth.
Confinement.
Yeah, to be confined.
Excellent, excellent. So, while you're confined, Michael, are you cooking anything? Are you eating anything?
Uh, I'm certainly eating, cooking, despite Rhapsody and Schmaltz. My attitude towards food, it's like if I was a nun who really loved children. Uh, I enjoy the product, but the actual manufacture, the stuff you need to do to get it there, is more out of my area of expertise, let's say.
Is there
So
anything you're craving that you typically can get and can't get in
uh,
quarantine?
there were a couple, I guess there was about a month where you could not get deli at all. But when things opened up to the extent that you could order or pick up takeout, that was quickly relieved. But otherwise, I mean, really, with between the pandemic and I'm in Canada, so kind of civil unrest that is taking place in the U.S. as we're speaking
Right.
is not really happening here. But it's basically a matter of kaduchas na klein teppele, you'd say in Yiddish, recurrent fever in a very small pot,
Mm.
uh, is pretty much what I've been cooking up these days. It's called looking for work when everything goes bye-bye.
So let's talk about your work. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write Rhapsody in Schmaltz.
There were a couple of things. One was an extremely pushy agent who thought this was a very good idea. And at the beginning, I demurred, partly because I really, joking aside, I am a terrible and unwilling cook. I don't enjoy cooking and I'm not good at it. Uh, so I was thinking, like, there are people around that, I'm acquainted with,
Yeah,
like Leah Koenig and Eve Joknowitz, who not only know the history and the background of these
yeah,
dishes, but can actually tell you how to make them.
right.
I can't do that. When Jeffrey Oskowitz and Liz Alpern come and explain to you how to pickle your own cucumbers, I could never do this. I might be able to tell you the history of pickling, back to the 85th century BCE. But so I thought, like, well, what have I got? What can I bring to this? And it took me a while to realize that what I could bring to it was, rather than talk about food as an object, as a source of sustenance,
Sure.
I could talk about it, the semiotics of it, I guess, what it represents, what the different dishes represent culturally
Mhm.
within Ashkenazi, and especially Yiddish-speaking Ashkenazi civilization, and what role do they fill, not only ritually, although that too, but also how do they come up in day-to-day speech? What kind of metaphors would you use with one dish where you would never use a similar metaphor with another, and
Right.
why? So stuff like that.
So in A Seat at the Table, you do two wonderful lectures, one on Yiddish food idioms, the other on Jewish food and popular culture. And you teach us about a bunch of idioms for kugel, kreplach, matzah. Can you share maybe one or two others with the folks watching today?
Yeah, sure. There's so many of them, and they're all over the map. One of my favorites, a lot of these are idioms that I'm familiar with, but
Sure.
would rarely use. But one of my favorites is "Our worm in grain halt us kein Sissels nicht tu." So our worm that's living in horseradish thinks that nothing can be sweeter. This is the Yiddish way of describing Stockholm syndrome.
Right.
But again, the worm, as it were, replaces the gefilte fish.
Sure.
As far as the grain goes. Um, Also with grain, you can talk about giving somebody fish on grain. You're going to give them fish without horseradish. This is an empty threat. This means they're going to get off with at most a slap on the wrist. It's similar to one that you mentioned to me, der Hargenen, to kill somebody. Der Hargenen emetsen mit a knish. I killed him with a knish is
Right.
the same kind of thing. In a non-food way in Yiddish, you would say, they killed, I stabbed his long black coat, but he wasn't in it at the time. The idea is you go through the motions of punishing somebody without actually doing anything to them. So those are a couple of crane things.
Okay, so Michael, we have a couple of these. So my colleagues, Alex Weiser and Eddie Portnoy, sent me a bunch of these they had compiled. So we talked about.
Yeah, this is the one we just mentioned.
So,
Yes, so yeah, it's like we're gonna fine you $50 in time served for having brought down Lehman Brothers or something.
right. It's a soft punishment.
Yeah, a punishment that's no real punishment, or in this case, an attack that has absolutely no effect.
Right.
In the way it's used here, it's he beat him to death, 40 lashes with a wet noodle, as Ann Landers used to say.
So
It's kind of like that.
Is there a subtext here of wanting more justice, or?
No, I think there was a lot of bluster and threat
Okay.
about what was going to happen, and what finally happens
Ah,
never really goes beyond the bluster and threat. It's I'm going to myrtleize you. I'm going to take your head and I'm going to put it here, etc., etc. And of course, then they walk away.
right. Got it. So I gotta pull up the next one here. Okay, great. Weiß weiter, wirst du gefunden, Kez.
Yeah, this one is I've been keep trying to think of an English equivalent for it. The idea is, you're back off a bit. You're going too far in something that is not actually leading to where you're going. I can't. I know that there's got to be an English equivalent. But this, I can't think of one. This is one I actually rarely have heard and certainly never used.
Yeah, is it like keep going, you'll kind of get to the thing you want?
Yeah, but it's not really there.
Hmm.
It's, if somebody's got their finger up their nose and you say, pick me a good one, I think it's closer to that.
Okay.
Pick me a winner. That's what they say.
Pick me a winner. Great. All right. Besser gefiltert Saurus, der gefilte Fisch.
I think this is backwards.
Oh, is it?
I've only heard it the other way.
It could be a Microsoft Word thing. So,
It might be. That is a problem with a lot of times.
so
Well, I know because when I saw this, I was actually, and I checked to see what Stuchkov has, and he has it the way I would have expected it to be. Beste gefilte Fisch, de gefilte Zures.
got it.
Where the idea here is, in gefilte fish, the fish is stuffed. That is what we think of as gefilte fish, the balls or those horrible little brick-like things that come in the jar, were originally then put back inside the fish skin. The fish skin was sewn up and it was all boiled together and eaten. That's why it's gefilte. We're only eating the filling most of the time these days. So here the idea of gefilte tsuris is you don't just have troubles, you've got troubles inside troubles,
Mm,
troubles wrapped in a chocolatey trouble coating or something. So if it's M&Ms, the chocolate and the coating are both made of tsuris. And if it's a peanut M&Ms, you're in even worse trouble. So that's the idea there, that you should have fish wrapped in fish rather than sorrows or troubles
mm,
wrapped in other troubles.
mm. Interesting. I think I have one or two more. Es niet die Lokshin for Shabbos.
Again, don't count your chickens, uh, before they hatch. Don't put the cart before the horse, anything like that. Um, There's another, it's similar to legs nicht kein Vogel in bosom. Don't put birds don't put birds inside your shirt like you're trying to steal off with them, which for some unknown reason means don't count your chickens before they've hatched.
Mm, great. All right. Tell us what we're looking at.
So zu Hering bedarf man kein Salz und zu Grieven kein Schmalz. So you don't need salt for a herring, and for grievanus or grieven, which is cracklings, chicken or goose skin that are salted and fried, you don't need schmaltz, because of course schmaltz and grievanus go together. The grievanus are basically schmaltz filled. They've been fried in it. Grievanus are, I guess they're one of the iconic Jewish foods that you don't see much these days, but they used to play a much larger role in Jewish folklore. There was an expression, "Sie geben de Griebenes
Mm.
Schmalz," to add schmaltz to the Griebenes, which is the equivalent of taking coals to Newcastle. Or also that there's yet another Yiddish idiom means the same thing, "Führen Streu kein Mitzrayim," to take straw to Egypt, because the Bible talks about making the bricks for the buildings that they had to put up, and they talk about that they wouldn't even give them straw, even though it was abundant.
Mm. So Michael, if I know it's hard to have one takeaway. There's so much here, but if there's one takeaway people could take, we have people taking our class, a seat at the table. They might have different levels of exposure to Jewish food or to Yiddish. But if there's one takeaway we could take from Yiddish food, or sort of the Yiddish cultural relationship with food, what would you say that is?
Um, I think the nature of Ashkenazi food, at any rate, is such that you can never forget that you have eaten it. And
Right.
this is a big thing. It goes back again to an idea similar to that with the gefilte fish and the gefilte tsuris. There's a Yiddish expression, tsuris mit joich is geringer zu vertragen wie tsuris unjoich. That is, troubles when you've got it's easier to bear troubles when you've got a bowl of soup than if you don't have a bowl of soup. That the food is there as much for emotional as physical sustenance.
Mm.
And because, of course, of the whole rarely mentioned but ever-present background of the dietary laws,
Sure.
the idea of spiritual sustenance, I think, or emotional sustenance, remains perhaps somewhat more to the fore than it would with the cuisine of other communities.
Yeah. So that sustenance, finding spiritual comfort in foods, is there from the beginning. We could argue from the very beginnings of Jewish history.
Yeah, well, I would say certainly if you look at the recipes, as it were, in the Bible for matzah and stuff, the
Hmm.
whole point of this, this is the first food that is actually described.
Right.
And there's not much in the way of a recipe. There's more of an anti-recipe. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do the other, and then you can't miss.
Right.
Uh, but the whole point of that meal and of the subsequent Seder meal, which if you want to take the Bible at face value, is the primal, the first communal Jewish meal,
Hmm.
is this is more food for your head or your heart than it is for your stomach. This is food for the mind. Killing the goat or the lamb is, in the context of the way the Bible or Jewish sources, classic Jewish sources, present ancient Egyptian religion. This is deicide. You're eating the god of the people that you're saying goodbye to.
Right.
It's about a lot more than simply uh, getting full, becoming physically satiated.
Mm. Well, there is certainly a lot in all of our heads and hearts these days. And I hope we can all find comfort, not just from the food we're making with our families and our communities, but from learning in our course and elsewhere. We'll make sure to link here links to your books, Michael.
Oh,
Uh,
thanks.
is there anything else you're working on, or places we can find you online?
Uh, these days, no.
You're eating
No,
your
I'm kind of, yeah. I was teaching an arbitrating course, but it's over. And I don't think I'm going to do one this summer
okay.
for them. But no, otherwise, as with everyone else, just about everything is canceled. So,
Well, I hope people will check out your books.
yeah, well, thanks.
Fantastic. We're all huge fans here at Evo, and we'll be chatting with you soon again, I hope.
I hope so. Yeah, that would be
And
nice.
yeah, and people can check out your lectures in a seat at the table. They can register at evo.org/food. And Michael, we'll talk soon. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
absolutely. Well, thank you. It's great to see you.